Hey guys, we've got another 11 rainbow pull on the global server. I've always done these, and I'm going to do this one as well. The past few 11 rainbow pulls, to be quite honest, have been pretty bad results for me, so you'd think I'd stop doing them, but I'm still doing it. Hopefully my luck turns around. I had amazing luck pulling for Vaughn, so, it goes both ways. But as far as 11 rainbow pulls go, I think the last two on global were pretty disappointing overall. I just did one of these on the Japanese server 2 days ago. It was extremely bad. I got 11 units that are just basically worthless. But I'm going to do it again on global and we'll see what happens. On global though, we get an STMR Moogle for 100% no matter what. So that almost by itself is worth the 10,000 in my opinion. The 11 rainbows that come along with it are mostly just bonuses. But I do have a blue login ticket, so we're going to do this for once. Do this first, I mean. It stayed blue. Whatever. As expected. I've also got my first of the Mog King rainbows that I'm going to do. The 30,000 point ticket. I got that. We're not getting any DB tickets anymore. Yeah, we're not. Okay, so we're going to do the guaranteed rainbow from the Vaughn and Pinello Mog event. This is my first one, 30,000 points. I figured I'd save it for today. So let's hope for something good. Give me AC Cloud, number 4. First copy of Leska. I mean, overall, pretty disappointing because she's just really power crept at this point. Ugh. And her STMR is okay. It's not amazing or anything, but it's something. That's my first copy, so it's only a 6-star. Whatever. I mean, okay, sure. It's not. It could have been. It could have been way worse. Now we're doing this. So I kind of feel like because I didn't have to do the 25,000 for Vaughn the other day, I got off really easily without doing any Lapis at all. I'm still 25k ahead, and I was going to pull for his STMR. So this is kind of like putting that 10k in and getting that STMR for him that I was going to do. So let's see what we get. Let's hope for the best. Fingers crossed. All right. And we don't have Neovisions on global yet, so we're not looking for any upgrades. These are just straight 11 rainbows. And here it comes. Okay. There's Cloud. Well, I'm already happy a little bit. Sweet Nicole. Blah. I don't care about that. Oh, another new one. Oh, he trolls me on global for the first time ever. No, the ultimate troll. Oh, another new one. Wow. Oh, no, wow. Okay. And then the Moogle. So okay, overall, this is acceptable. I like this. It's actually pretty good almost. So let's go through them one by one. Yeah. So Saul, I'm pretty that's my second copy of Saul. 7-star now. People asked me on the enhanced unit video I did a few days ago, why didn't you use Saul on your enhancements? I forgot to mention I didn't have a 7-star Saul, so I couldn't use him. Quite honestly though, I already spent 20 million gil enhancing all those other units. I probably won't enhance Saul today, just because I've got a lot of mages at this point. So it's cool that I got him. His STMR is amazing if I ever get a 4th copy someday. So I'm glad to pull that Saul because it's progress towards his amazing STMR. Probably not going to use his 7-star though, even though it's really good. I just don't need it. Lid is worthless. I've already got the STMR. That's number 6 for a regular Lid. Yeah, that does nothing. Pyroglacial Laswell. I've already got his STMR. How many do I have? Let me find Laswell in my little list here. That is number 6. Which is amazing. I'm really happy about that because his Neovisions, assuming we get it the same as JP, is extraordinarily good. It's one of my favorite Neovisions of the older units. I used him in most of the trials on JP that have come out. I've used the Neovision of Pyroglacial Laswell, and you need 6 copies. No, you need 7 copies to get EX plus 1. So I actually still need one more copy of him at some point to get his EX plus 1 form. But still, Neovision's Lastwell is really good, so even though that's number 6, I'm happy about that. Then there's Cloud. That is his STMR. I am thrilled about that. The next time Item World comes, I know where all my Item World portions are going. We are going to get 45 attack on that Cloud STMR. Or I'm going to try at least. Yeah, Cloud STMR is amazing. I'm very happy about that. Myra is the absolute biggest troll possible. She is my number 1 most pulled unit in the game. I had 11 copies of her. Now I have 12. That is number 12, Myra. I have pulled more of her than anyone. My second most common is Elfrida at number 9. I have 9 copies of Elfrida. That's 12th copy of Myra. Can you please leave me alone? Sylvie's up there as well. How many Sylvies do I have? I've already got her STMR, and I've got more than her, too. Sylvie. Come on, where's my list? Sylvie, where are you? Oh, no, I actually only had 4 Sylvies. So that's Sylvie number 5. Still pretty terrible. Kefka, I'm really happy to see. His STMR is great. It's 100% magic true double hand and 60% magic. It's like the best double hand magic STMR around. That's only my 3rd copy, though. But still, that's progress towards a great STMR. So, 3rd copy of Kefka, I'm fine with that. I'm really happy about that because eventually, we're going to get the true double hand cap raised to 400%. So those really slot-efficient STMRs that are for true double hand are really good. Like Kefka, 100% double hand and 60 magic is great. Diablo Saul, that's my 2nd copy. I just pulled one of him pretty recently. And that's number 2. I'll probably use his 7-star, because unlike regular Saul, his just takes some Cactuars, whatever. I don't got to spend 10 million gil and 1 billion crystals to enhance him. I can just use him out the gate, just level him up, give him some of my magic pops, and we're good to go. So I'll probably use Diablo Saul, or Dark Spirit Saul. Overall, he had, like, a few weeks of his time in the sun, and then he got power crept, like, immediately. So he's kind of whatever at this point. He's also AoE, so I can't really use him in Dark Visions, but he's still fun to have. Sweet Nicole, pretty much a troll. Bad unit overall, just not worth it. First copy anyway, whatever. Axstar, absolute garbage, terrible, do not want, but whatever. And then Noel. Noel is he's pretty cool. He's a good 7-star. He's got really high burst. He's great for Dark Visions. Only a 1st copy, so until I get one more, he's not going to do much for me, but it's good to get a 1st copy. Hopefully I get a 2nd copy before he's like massively power crept when Neovisions comes out. But if I get a new copy, sometime in the next 3 weeks, I can use him in the next Dark Visions and it'd be great. There we go. So overall, am I happy with this one? I am. I pretty much am happy with this one. I really am. So Saul was a nice pull. Good STMR progress. Lastwell was amazing. That gives me one step closer to his Neovisions that I really want. Cloud STMR was, I literally asked for, that was my number 1 want out of all of this, with Cloud STMR. I asked that at the start of the video. Here it is. So I'm that by itself is amazing. Kefka's STMR progress is really good, and the rest is like, whatever or bad. While I'm here, though, I've been getting a lot of questions. What do I think of the pick for the unit of choice pick? Not the unit of choice, I'm not sure what they're calling it. The next era exchange coin. What of these am I going to pick, and what do I think? So I'll give, instead of like answering each person individually in comments, I've been asked it a lot. I'll just give you a quick, very, very brief rundown of my opinions on these units. Keep in mind, this is strictly my opinion. You may agree or disagree, and the units you own may or may not, have different priorities for these. This is just what I think about the units, so just without spending too much time on them. Pyroglacial Lastwell, as of currently, is trash. He is absolutely not worth it. He has a bad STMR, he's got a pretty bad TMR, and his 7-star form is just bad right now. It's too old. It is old and outdated. His Neovisions, if we get it the same as JP, is great. It's really good. That said, I would not use any of these picks on the hope of a future Neovisions, because we have no idea if they're going to be delayed, if it'll be changed, if the entire global system will change. So I wouldn't pull or pick anything based on the unknown future of Global's Neovisions. All I'll say is, in Japan, his Neovisions is good. But as of right now, I would not pick Laswell. Sakura, overall outdated and bad. Her Neovisions, she does have a Neovisions JP. It's overall not that great. I wouldn't pick her. Lotus Mage Fina, I mean, she's a cool character and all, but at this point, she's just really, really dated. I wouldn't pick her. If you need a healer, there's a better option on this banner. Jake, would not pick him. He has no future. As of currently, he has no Neovisions. His STMR is probably the worst of the STMR guns. There's like 5 other STMR guns. They're all better than his. Heavenly Technician Lid, again, is just really outdated. I wouldn't pick her. If you need a breaker, there's a better one coming up on this banner. I'll point it out when we get there. Maritime Nicole, same thing. There's a better version of him on this banner. I would not pick him. Awaken Rain, broken record here. There's a better version of a magic tank on this banner. Don't pick him. Hayo is just really, really outdated. Don't pick him. Citra was never good ever. Don't pick her. C-Card is pretty good. He got Latents recently. It made him even better. But if you need a physical tank, for one thing, physical tanks are kind of not that useful these days. But if you need one, there's a better one on this banner. Folka, in my opinion, is the current best healer available from these picks. I think it's only her and Lotus Mage Fina, and Folka is better. She is really old, and overall, one healer is basically as good as another. And truthfully, if you need a healer, just use Blue Mage Fina. She's free, and she's a really good healer if you just level her up. I mean, honestly, she's missing some of the cool stuff that Folka can do. But Blue Mage Fina is definitely good enough. If you need a healer and you don't have one, don't waste your pick on Folka. Use Blue Mage Fina, and eventually you'll off-banner like a better healer. But Blue Mage Fina will carry you through all the trials without a problem. Ignacio, I mean, he's good at what he does. He does the AoE Fire Imbue, which is neat and all. He's decent. I wouldn't use him on a pick. I mean, it's really specialized for AoE Fire Imbue, and it's just... I honestly wouldn't pick him. Sid's kind of a special case. Currently, he's still very, very, very good in Dark Visions. He's never been super amazing for trials. I mean, he can one-shot lots of trials, but then again, so can all the newest DPS units. He's really only for Dark Visions these days. He's great in Dark Visions. Would I use a pick on him? If we had his latent abilities, probably. His latent abilities that are currently missing on Global make him a whole lot better at his burst damage. They're currently MIA on Global. We may never get them. As we get into Neovisions, his burst damage is going to become less and less impressive. It'll still be really good. If you have like the really high-end jump gear, you can like whale him out and make him really, really strong. But I probably wouldn't pick him, honestly. That's just my pick. If you really love Sid, though, there he is. Original Reagan, just absolutely not. He is just way too outdated, and there's a better DPS on the banner if you need one. Sacred Shield Charlotte, honestly, you can UOC her, including the base unit. You can just directly even if you have 0 of her, you could UOC her and then use a Prism on her if you really wanted to. I probably wouldn't use one of these really limited coins on an old unit like Charlotte, but she's still in the general UOC pool. That being said, with her new enhancements, she's probably the best magical tank on this banner available. So if you really, really need a magical tank, there she is. She is the best choice, in my opinion, of the current options. I'd probably spend 10 UOC on getting her and then use the Prism that we get in a few days from these same events on her instead, and I'd use the actual coin on a unit you can't UOC. But if you're desperate for a magical tank, I'd probably choose her from the banner. Xeno is just really outdated. His enhancements didn't really save him. I would not pick him. But I will say his STMR is very, very powerful. It's a one-handed katana with 180 attack, 40% attack, and 75% human killer. It's a really powerful katana. I would only choose that STMR if you had like all the other good picks, and you're like, well, I may as well just use it on an STMR. His is a great STMR. I mean, if you have like all the top picks, Xeno's fine. Xeno's STMR is fine. Don't pick the unit, pick the STMR if you have no other better choices. Axstar is terrible. The unit was... The unit was not bad. The unit was power crept on release. He released with Xeno. He was literally power crept on his own banner. Then Esther came out and he was bad from there. Then he got enhancements. His enhancements did not save him in any possible way. The only redeeming thing I can say about Axstar is he's got a two-handed katana STMR when they're pretty rare. But I think so does King Laswell, and he's on this pick as well. So if you're like desperate for a two-handed katana, go for Laswells. Don't go for Axstars. Seaside Nicole, he has like a very specialized niche, as in he can do 50% mitigation to both physical and magical on your tank with full uptime. He's the only one that can do that. That being said, it's almost never relevant, even on Behemoth coming up. It's still not going to be that special. I mean, that'd probably be the only time you would ever use Seaside Nicole, is if you had your entire team evasion and you needed more bulk on your magical tank. Seaside Nicole could give your magical tank, and only your magical tank, permanent 50% mitigation to magic and physical, which is useful, but still, I would not pick him, especially not for that reason. Like, worst case scenario, just put off Behemoth till later. Don't waste a pick on Nicole, in my opinion. Aloha Laswell is just a bad pick all around. His STMR is really bad. He does have an evasion TMR, and if you're just desperate, and absolutely desperate, for evasion TMRs, like you have 0 Noctis and 0 Aloha Laswell and 0 Rico Rodriguez, and you never pull Therian from the limited event, like maybe you could justify picking Laswell just for that 25% evasion accessory. I wouldn't recommend it. I would say skip Aloha Laswell, but it's just really up to you. Summer Fina and Lid. Remember how I said earlier there's a better breaker on the banner? If you're desperate for a breaker, they're probably the best option on this banner. I think it's only her and then Original Lid are the only actual breakers on the banner. Truthfully, if you're really desperate for a breaker, the Vaughn banner is currently open. Try your luck for Vaughn, I would say. Don't go for Summer Fina and Lid. I mean, she can get the job done. She's decent. She's actually even got a Neovisions in the Japanese server. It's overall not that impressive of a Neovisions, but I mean, it is a Neovision. It does make her better than she currently is. I wouldn't recommend picking her, but again, if you're just absolutely desperate for a breaker, she's probably the best option here. But I would still say just hold off for a better one if you can. Summer Folka and Citra, they're overall not very good today. They kind of never were very good on Global. I mean, you can actually run them as like a weirdo support healer kind of setup, and do something, but still, I wouldn't recommend them. Special mention, they do have a pretty good Neovisions in the Japanese server. It's not the best, but it is pretty strong. They're like a spirit scaling. They stop being evokers and they swap over to just pure entire spirit scaling mage with their Neovision form, and it's pretty powerful. But once again, I would not recommend you pull anything based on the uncertain future of Global's Neovisions. So, like, don't pick them and then find out Global changes or reorders the schedule and we don't get her until they're after their power crept. So, yeah, I would not pick them just based on the potential of their Neovisions. Kimono Athena just got her latents, and they actually gave her some very, very powerful burst damage. Her average damage is even pretty good if you average it out over all the turns, but her burst damage is completely insane for a mage. But she can't do it until turn 4. And the big, like, air quotes thing about her is it's all AoE and quad casting. That makes her very, very hard to use in Neovisions because of the AoE bug. You can probably use her on the final boss. Like, if she had her latents for the Bahamut fight on the Neovisions we just had, she could easily get all 4 of her cast off on Bahamut, and it would work fine. But she's going to have a lot of problems being used on the earlier fights because of that AoE bug. So overall, I wouldn't pick her because of that. It's an AoE mage, and AoE mages, until Gumi ever fixes the bug, if they ever fix it, I wouldn't pick her. Chocobo Fina, as much as I like this unit, I've used her in a bunch of videos just because I think she's a really cool unit. Unfortunately, she's really power crept. She's outdated. Her damage is not really up there, and she can't even do her good damage until turn 7, which is like worse than Quistis. She's due for enhancements. She should have gotten them last month. We didn't get them. We didn't get them this month either, so who knows if we're ever going to get them. Even if she got the enhancements as they were in JP, they're still not going to bring her up to par at this point. She would need some global buffs. We don't know if that's ever going to happen, so I would not pick Chocobo Fina. Saul, I mentioned earlier, his enhancements made him a lot better. He's a pretty good mage now. He's, I think he's like the same damage as Pinello almost, or close to it, if you enhance them. He has the same problem as Kimono Athena. He's a quad-casting AoE mage, which means for Dark Visions, which is the primary content these days, I mean, I hate to say that, but it's kind of true. He's a quad-casting AoE mage, and even though his frames got updated to Chaos Wave Awaken, he's very, very rarely, if ever, going to get his third or fourth cast off in Neo Visions, except for the final boss. So I wouldn't pick him. Aldor King Rain, he was great for like 6 months. Unfortunately, he's just too old at this point. His DPS is not very good. His STMR is like decent, but I would not pick Aldor Rain. Hess King Laswell, same thing. He's just too outdated at this point. I would not bother. White Lily Dark Fina, same story. She's just really outdated at this point. She was great for a while. It's just she's fallen further and further behind. I wouldn't bother. Physalis, she's really funny in the story. She's like the comic relief. Unfortunately, her unit is just outdated. I would not choose her. Sweet Nicole, he is just bleh. I honestly would not pick him. He's a pretty unfortunate unit, in my opinion. I'd say no. Nicola the Epsilon Star, he's kind of like a hard one to recommend because on the one hand, he's probably the overall best support unit on this banner. If you're really looking for a support unit, Nicola the Epsilon Star is where it's at. He's the best of the picks of this current banner. He does general mitigation, both type mitigations. He can do barriers, LB fill. He's a really good unit. And if you really want a support unit, sure, you could do worse than him. He's really good. That being said, he's pretty worthless in Dark Visions. Trials are, for the most part, pretty easy these days. You don't even really need dedicated supports in Trials. I just wouldn't pick him just because he's not going to be used in Dark Visions, and that's the primary content. But again, if you need a good support unit, he's really good. Sakura of the Delta Star. Now we're getting to the more newer units that actually have some value and picks. I'd say she's one of the better picks in this banner. Not for her damage. Her damage is really bad. It's like, she should have gotten way more buffs on Global. She didn't, unfortunately. She's a Thunder finisher. If she's locked into one element, she can only finish. She doesn't do anywhere near as much damage as like Ace, Rem, Draconian Fina, or Dark Fina, whatever they're calling it. Not Draconian. Umbral Dark Fina, and then as we go further and further, Kuja next week. Like, she's just falling further and further behind. But she does have two really big redeeming qualities. For one thing, her killers. She has, I think, Aqua, Beast, and Undead Magical Killer. Those are great for Dark Visions, for Zonda Steel. She's really good for Dark Visions. Now, you might be saying, like, oh, I use Ace, Rem, and Selfie. I use all these physical types, or like Xuan Wu. I don't need magical killers because I share all the physical killers. That's true, but unless global exclusives come out, as we get into the Neo Vision era and we get all these Neo Vision mages, none of them are physical typed. All the Neo Vision mages use magical killers. So Sakura of the Delta Star, when combined with Zon, is going to still be really good in future Dark Visions. Now, that being said, we don't know what Global is going to do. They could put out, like, a Neo Vision of Xuan Wu, and all of a sudden, we're still using physical mages again in Dark Visions. You never know. But as far as JP goes, all the Neo Vision mages are real mages that use magical killers. And magical, Undead, Aqua, and Beast Killer is really rare, and she can share those. Also, her STMR is great. It's a really high magic rod with 50% just percent magic to it on top of the usuals. So with Item World, that could give you up to 95% magic with the rod. Also, it gives limit burst damage, which is pretty rare for mages. Personally, I'm probably not going to pick her because I have a better pick. I'll go over that in a minute. But she's still one of the better picks on this banner if you care about Dark Visions. Now, for Trials, I would probably never take her to a trial. That's just me. If you love her and want to take her to a trial, she can work. But I would only pick her if you care about ranking and dark visions and you're desperate for better magical killers for Zon to spread. Supreme Diva Axstar, overall, not that great. His DPS is fine, but it's just falling behind more and more every day. He does have a 200% killer buff for humans that you can steal with Zon for dark visions. That being said, human killer is probably one of the most common killers in the game. So even though his is 200%, which is higher than most of the other available ones, it's still a really common killer, and I wouldn't pick him for that reason. Draconian Princess Fina, she has a really good TMR. It's fulfilling the Esper gauge, which is useful in a lot of situations. Her STMR is pretty bad. It's a bow, which is just not good. It's a magical bow. But again, she has the same problem as the other mages I mentioned. She's an AoE mage, which makes her really hard to use in dark visions. Her damage is pretty respectable. It's just very hard to use in dark visions. I wouldn't recommend an AoE mage for dark visions if you can help it. Of course, you can make them work. You can like delay cast and all that kind of stuff. And there's ways to sort of work around it. But for me personally, it's just more headache than it's worth. I'm going to be sticking to single target mages whenever possible. I wouldn't pick Draconian Fina. Dark Spirit Saul, same problem. He's even worse. He's actually a quad casting AoE mage, which is even harder to use in dark visions. I would not pick Dark Spirit Saul for that reason, because AoE mages just thumbs down. Infernal Fire Rain, his personal damage is just falling behind more and more. It's not super relevant anymore. But special mention goes to his STMR. His STMR is a really high attack power chest piece with 50% Beast Killer. Beast Killer, it's physical Beast Killer, by the way. It's pretty rare still. It's kind of rare. I think the only sources are some STMRs, the one copy you can get from the treasure chest, and now Beauty Fran's TMR, which technically you can Prism Moogle more copies, but it's still overall a really rare killer. There's also going to be quite a few Beast trials coming up. The Behemoth trial is part Beast, the Quirrell trial is Beast, the Integer Extreme is Beast. I think that's it for trials. Dark Ifrit will eventually be coming for the Extreme version, but it hasn't been released on JP. Overall, he's one of the better STMRs. If you were at 3 copies of Rain and had all the other good picks, he's a good choice. Four Winds Physalis is another AoE mage. She's only a triple cast mage, so that makes it a little bit easier to use in dark visions. You can usually get 2 of her cast off. On some of the tankier bosses, you can get all 3 cast off, and she burst really hard. She's a good mage for dark vision. She is element locked to, I think, 2 elements. I could be wrong. I don't have her myself, so I could be wrong here. I think it's only water and wind. But she might be 3 elements. I don't know. But overall, if you need a mage, she's pretty good. If you had like Ace, Rem, Selfie, I probably wouldn't pick her. Also, her STMR is pretty specialized. I think no one's going to use it except her. So getting more copies of her later would feel kind of bad. But, whatever. War Hero Reagan, that's who I personally will probably be picking. I own 0 of him. I'm probably going to choose him with this coin, and I'm going to choose his Prism with the Prism pick that comes next week. Assuming I don't off-banner him at some point. The reason is he brings physical, undead killer, and dragon killer. And a dragon killer, you can technically get a better one from Duke, but Duke is kind of a dead slot in parties, whereas Reagan can actually contribute. His is only 150 dragon killers, so it's a little bit weaker than Duke's, but he can actually contribute some damage. Also for undead killer, he's like the second best. The only one better than him is Rab, the limited hybrid unit, which I only have a 6-star up. I could Omniprism, but I'm not going to. So I'm probably going to pick War Hero Reagan. Another thing that makes me feel good about picking Reagan is his STMR is really, really good, in my opinion. It's I think 182 attack power sword with 50% true dual wield built in. I really like that. I think that's great. So if I off-bannered more of him later, I would feel good about that. Like, for example, if I picked like 4 Winds Physalis and picked 2 of her, that'd be nice. And then if I off-bannered more later, I'd get her STMR, which no one's going to use. No one uses magical guns except for her. Whereas off-bannering more Reagans later would be good, unless I off-bannered more than 4, then I'd feel bad. But that's who I'm probably going to pick is Reagan. I think he's a good pick. He's going to fix my undead problem in Dark Visions for humans. For physical. I'll probably replace Duke with him. Maybe. Of course, the math may say Duke is worth it even with him on the team. Who knows? I'll have to play with it. But I'm probably going to pick Reagan. The other remaining picks are Hallowed Aegis Charlotte. She's a dual tank, and she's decent. She's good at what she does. But like I mentioned earlier with C-Card, physical cover tanks are almost never used. Like, you'll maybe use them on 1 trial out of 10 trials where you use magical cover. That hasn't changed in JP. JP, it's still all about magical cover. Every trial, just magical cover, magical cover, magical cover. Even the global exclusive trials have been usually magical cover. Like Rumble of Malbro and what was that snake trial? I can't think of the name, but it's really old trial. But magical cover was better on that one too. But anyway, yeah. So Charlotte, she's more of a physical tank than a magical tank. Even though she can cover magic, she's more geared towards physical tanking. I personally wouldn't pick her. I really wouldn't. But if you really, really like her, you do you. And then Mystical Ice Lastwell, I've already got him, so I don't need him. But he's actually a really good choice in Dark Visions as well. He's got a lot of utility buffs, like 100% Dark Resist. He can give you immunity to most of the ailments, and Zahn can spread those and make them last the entire fight if you're doing a 4 or 5 turn clear or less. So he's a good Dark Visions pick. His damage is pretty good as well. Of course, like all the DPS on this list, every single week they just fall further and further and behind the new kids on the block. But he's an overall good pick. So that's pretty much the list. So just as a really quick recap, I talked way longer than I wanted to. If you need a healer, honestly, don't pick a healer. Just use Blue Mage Fina. She's a free unit. Everyone has her. Just do the storyline. If you really need a magical tank, Sacred Shield Charlotte's probably the way to go. Again, I probably wouldn't use this very valuable coin on her unless you just really want a tank right now today. Breaker, honestly, if you're watching this, you probably just got Machina the Breaker from the Final Fantasy Type 0 event for free. I'd use him. If you skipped Machina, if you just started playing today, I still probably wouldn't pick Summer Fina and Lid, but they're the best breaker. The best supporter on this list is probably Epsilon Nicole, but once again, I personally would not recommend picking him. If you care about Dark Visions, which is probably the quote-unquote the hardest content to play optimally on, because trials could be beaten with almost anything these days, whereas Dark Visions need some really specific stuff to score high. I'd say some of the better picks for Dark Visions are like Odin Reagan, Mystic Lastwell, or Delta Sakura. So one of those 3 is probably a good pick for Dark Visions. Maybe 4 Winds Faisaless if you don't mind working around the AoE bug. You can work around it with her, depending on timing and how you do your burst. If you want just a plain old DPS to clear regular trials, War Hero Reagan's probably your best pick for physical. 4 Winds Faisaless is your best pick for magical, just for plain trials. You want to go on there if you're behind on trials. There's your pick. And if you have all the good units, you're just looking for a good STMR. Pick whatever you want. Some of the better ones, in my opinion, would be like Xeno, Infernal Fire Rain, War Hero Reagan. There's some other ones that I mentioned. I probably forgot them. Oh, Delta Sakura's got a good STMR. There you go. So there's my thoughts on the unit of choice token we're getting for the anniversary. Hope it's been helpful, and hopefully the rest of you have good luck on your 11 rainbow pulls. I'll see you guys next time.